The first time I realized I wasn't the son my dad wanted, I was 10 years old, standing in the garage holding a wrench that was too heavy for my hand. My oldest brother, Brent, was under the hood of Dad's truck. David was stacking bags of cement in the back of the pickup. I just stood there, waiting for instructions. Dad glanced over and said, "What are you doing standing around? Go help your mother set the table." That was it. No lesson, no tool, no chance. Quick note. Before we start, how's your day going, and where are you joining from? My name's Ryan Walker. I'm 26 now, based in Atlanta. But back then, I was just the youngest Walker boy in Warner Robins, Georgia. And being the youngest meant you got the leftovers. Leftover attention, leftover respect, leftover dreams. My dad, Walter Walker, ran Walker Materials, one of the biggest concrete suppliers in central Georgia. He believed in grit, not grades. Real men work with their hands, he used to say, not tapping at screens like a squirrel on crack. Didn't matter that I was curious. I wanted to know how trucks were routed, how deliveries were scheduled, how invoices got tracked. All that back-end stuff fascinated me. But to him, that wasn't real work. That was daydreams and screen-staring nonsense. When Brent turned 16, he got a beat-up F-150. David got a Silverado 2 years later. When I turned 15, I got a hand-me-down Dell desktop with a cracked monitor and a sticky keyboard. They thought they were punishing me. Instead, they handed me a lifeline. I started teaching myself basic programming at night. Python, JavaScript, little apps that didn't do much but let me build something that was mine. I'd stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning, headphones on so nobody would hear. If Dad caught me, he'd mutter something about wasting electricity and tell me to mow the lawn in the morning. At school, nobody cared, except for Mr. Redman, my computer science teacher. He saw what I was doing and started pushing me harder. He told me about Georgia Tech, helped me apply, found me scholarships, believed in me when my own family didn't even ask what I was working on. When the acceptance letter came in, I was holding it and shaking hands at the kitchen table. Dad didn't even look up from his plate, said, "You'll be back here in a year asking for a job loading trucks. College can't teach you how to run a business." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded, went back to my room, and started packing. I moved into Glen Hall with 2 duffel bags, a cracked laptop, and barely enough in my bank account to buy a used graphing calculator. Dad covered my tuition, but said if I wanted to eat, sleep, or wipe my ass, I'd have to figure that out on my own, so I did. Monday through Friday, I cleaned bathrooms in the physics building from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., then rushed to class with bleach still in my nails. I'd finish lectures, grab a vending machine dinner, and code until midnight or later. Engineering course load damn near broke me, but every time I thought about quitting, I heard my dad's voice in my head. "You'll be back here in a year asking for a job, loading trucks." That was not happening. Around November, I met 2 guys from my dorm, Kevin and Trey, computer science majors like me, but sharper, more experienced. We bonded over caffeine, Red Bull, and hatred for lazy group project partners. We started building a little side project, a tool that encrypted bids and building plans for small construction firms. Nothing fancy, just something simple that kept nosy competitors from peeking at blueprints or undercutting quotes. Most contractors weren't exactly tech savvy, but they cared about losing money. We figured if we could solve a real pain point, we had a shot. Meanwhile, my Sunday calls with Dad stayed on the calendar like a dentist appointment you couldn't skip. He'd ask, "What's your GPA?" and barely grunt when I said I was holding a 3.8. If I brought up the software, "That's a hobby, son. Focus on something that'll pay the bills." No "good job." No "that sounds interesting." Just the same cold wall. That spring, we entered a student pitch competition. Big one. 10 schools, 50 teams, 2 rounds. We didn't think we'd even make finals, but we took second place and walked away with a $25,000 seed check. I called Dad right after. Thought maybe this time I'd hear something different. His response, "Don't let it get to your head. Money's easy to burn." That night, I stared at the ceiling in my dorm bed, fists clenched under the blanket. I wasn't trying to be a billionaire. I just wanted him to give a damn. I didn't go home that summer, couldn't afford to. Kevin stayed, Trey stayed, and we set up shop in a barely ventilated campus lab room with a broken fan and flickering fluorescent light. We ate ramen, showered twice a week, and coded like we were on fire. 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. By July, the money was running out. We hadn't landed a single client. Every sales email we sent got ignored or marked as spam. One guy replied just to say, "Don't ever email me again." Kevin wanted to pivot. Trey wanted to quit. I just sat there in that hot-ass room, staring at the wall and thinking, maybe Dad was right. But then, everything flipped. A small construction firm out of Valdosta, Griffin & Sons Builders, responded to one of our cold emails. The owner, a guy named Jim Griffin, agreed to a Zoom demo. I wore my only button-down shirt, ran the meeting from a closet to block noise, and pitched like my life depended on it. At the end, Jim leaned back and said, "This could save us a fortune. Let's give it a shot." He signed a 3-month contract the next morning. I kicked my chair across the room when the email came in. Kevin shouted. Trey cried. We all ran to Waffle House and ordered everything we couldn't afford last month. It was a small win, but it was ours, and it kept the lights on. Griffin & Sons put us on the map. Within 2 months, we had 6 more clients, all small firms in Georgia, all fighting the same uphill battle with bid security. Word of mouth and builder forums lit up, and just like that, we weren't nobodies anymore. We rebranded the tool as 40Quote, gave it a logo, a landing page, slapped together a terms of service doc. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Our pitch was simple. Keep your bids safe, your margins tighter, and your competitors out of your files. Kevin started calling us the digital vault for drywall guys. That stuck. My phone started buzzing with demo requests. Builders from Tennessee, North Carolina, even Alabama wanted in. We were exhausted, underpaid, and coding in borrowed clothes half the time. But we were building something real. That's about when my dad stopped calling. At first, I didn't even notice. I was too busy to chase him. But then I saw it. Brent and David clowning me in a comment thread under one of my LinkedIn posts. Brent wrote, "Look out, folks. It's the Mark Zuckerberg of concrete." David followed with, "Let us know when your app can carry a 90 lbru bag of Quikrete." I didn't respond. I just screenshotted it and saved it in a folder I labeled Fuel. Things were going too well for a while, and that should have been the warning sign. A contractor in Macon didn't follow our onboarding steps right. Uploaded unsecured files, didn't enable two-factor. They got hacked, plans leaked, bids stolen. Next thing I knew, his project manager was blowing up our support inbox with threats. Then came the email from their lawyer. They blamed us. Said 40Quote was responsible for the breach. Demanded damages, accused us of negligence. I stopped sleeping. Kevin panicked. Trey damn near walked. I thought that was it. The end. Then Claudia Mason called. I didn't know who she was. Some investor out of Atlanta who said she'd heard about us through a VC thread. She asked for a pitch deck, a product demo, and our legal correspondence. I sent everything and braced for silence. Instead, she called back 3 days later. "I'm wiring you $300,000, she said. "But there's a condition." I waited, heart in my throat. "When this works, and it will, you mentor the next kid like you, someone underestimated." I didn't even blink. Deal. Her lawyers handled the complaint, cleaned it up, rewrote our user agreement, and got us in the clear. The Macon firm dropped the case once they realized they had ignored literally every single security warning we'd sent. After that, we locked it all down. New onboarding process, better encryption defaults, built-in pop-ups, redesign, clearer disclaimers, all of it. I learned to stop assuming clients would read anything unless it blinked. That was the shift. I brought on 2 paid interns, one from Georgia State, one from Tech. Both hungry, smart, willing to learn. We rented a basement office in downtown Savannah for $800 a month. No windows, smelled like mildew and printer ink, but it was ours. Claudia introduced us to a part-time CFO named Dale, who'd retired early but still liked startups. He worked 20 hours a week, cleaned up our books, and made sure we didn't blow through Claudia's money on branded t-shirts and free snacks. I wasn't sleeping much, but I was standing taller. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was building something that could actually last. I still hadn't heard from Dad. Didn't matter. We had clients, we had code, we had cash in the bank and contracts in review. Let them mock me all they want. 40Quote was no joke. By the end of that fall, we weren't just surviving. We were drowning in interest. One client turned into 20, then 50. And I was still enrolled in classes part-time, thinking I could do both. Big mistake. I'd be in thermodynamics at 10 a.m., trying to stay awake after pulling an all-nighter rewriting security protocols for a subcontractor in Chattanooga who kept forgetting his damn password. I stopped eating real meals. I'd grab trail mix from gas stations, crash on the office couch in my jeans, and code through migraines so bad I'd go blind for a few seconds at a time. My girlfriend Maddie started showing up less and texting even less than that. One night she came by the office with takeout. I was on a Zoom call with a Texas roofing firm trying to close a deal. She stood there holding 2 paper bags, waiting for me to wrap up. I didn't even look at her. When I finally hung up, she dropped the food on the desk and said, "You care more about your startup than you care about people." I said, "This is for people. It's for the team, for clients." She didn't even argue, just walked out. Never saw her again. A week later, I passed out during a demo, literally blacked out mid-sentence. Woke up on the floor with Kevin fanning me with a legal pad. I dragged myself to campus health the next morning, sat in a freezing exam room while some med student told me I had tension headaches, vitamin deficiency, and probably wasn't sleeping more than 3 hours a night. No shit. At school, my academic advisor called me in. He said, "Ryan, you have to pick. You're either running a business or you're earning a degree." I looked him in the eye and said, "Then I picked the business." But I didn't drop out. I cut everything except 2 online electives a semester, just enough to stay enrolled, keep the option alive. The next day I got an email from my dad. No greeting, just one line. "Still pretending to be CEO while failing out of school?" I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Claudia. She called me that night and said, "Screw him, you're running a real company. You're ready to raise for real." With her help, we pulled together a new deck and pitched 5 serious firms, all regional, all construction adjacent, real investors who knew what a cracked bid file meant to a small contractor. We landed a $3.5 million seed round in 6 weeks. One of the partners at East River Capital leaned back during the final meeting and said, "This all looks great, but you're young. Ever think about bringing in an older co-founder, someone seasoned, might add credibility?" I didn't even blink. "No," I said. "I'm not giving up control. I'll hire experience, but I'm not handing over what I built." They all looked at each other like I'd just kicked their dog. I didn't care. Claudia backed me. She helped me vet and recruit a real CTO, Hannah Fields, mid-30s, ex-Microsoft. New back-end infrastructure better than anyone I'd ever met. For COO, we brought on Glenn Pierce, a former project manager at a national construction firm. Gray beard, clean spreadsheets, didn't talk unless it mattered. They didn't want my job. They just wanted to build. With the new team in place, things moved faster, cleaner. We set up project management systems, hired a real support staff, and finally started thinking past next Friday. I still wasn't sleeping much, and I sure as hell wasn't seeing anyone. But 40 Quote was growing, and I was still behind the wheel. That was all I needed. We signed the contract with Hawthorne Construction Group 2 weeks before spring semester started. They ran operations in 5 states, over 300 employees. They'd never used digital security tools before, and they were bleeding money from stolen quotes and leaked bids. We demoed 40 Quote. They signed a 6-figure deal the next day. And just like that, the dam broke. Revenue exploded. I stopped tracking individual clients. I just watched the numbers climb. Kevin was managing a full dev team now. Hannah rebuilt our back end from scratch. Glenn handled operations like he'd been born doing it. We moved out of the Savannah basement and into a 2-story brick office in Decatur, 15 minutes east of downtown Atlanta, parking lot in the back, proper sign out front. 40 Quote, Technologies, LLC. It finally looked real. Claudia introduced me to Karen Wallace, 55, sharp as hell, ex-CFO from Caterpillar's Southern Division. She walked through our books like she was skimming a grocery list. "Too fat, too fast," she said. "If you want to scale, you need to think long." She came on as strategic CFO and whipped us into shape, slashed burn rate, rebuilt forecasting, started prepping us for something I hadn't dared say out loud yet, an IPO. By then, I was technically in my 5th year of undergrad, still enrolled in 2 online classes, one finance, one professional writing. My professors knew who I was. One of them offered me extra credit if I brought her class donuts and told startup war stories. I got an email from the dean's office asking if I wanted to be the commencement speaker. I declined, politely. I'm prepping a billion-dollar public offering, I told them. Gonna have to sit this one out. They understood. The university still invited my family. Ceremony was scheduled for Saturday 10 a.m. at Bobby Dodd Stadium. Friday night at 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from a number I hadn't seen in years. We'll be there. Don't expect applause. Dad. I stared at it for a second, then set the phone down and went back to reviewing the final IPO numbers with Karen. Minutes before the ceremony began, 40 Quote's share price was finalized at $38 per share, a $1.02 billion valuation. The IPO went live as I was walking onto the stage. I didn't cry, didn't cheer, just sat there in my cap and gown, suit under the robe, while CNBC headlines pinged my inbox like fireworks. Karen leaned over from the row behind me and whispered, "It's official, you're a unicorn." My fingers were shaking when I checked the app. It was real, 40 Quote, public, 1.02 billion. That's when the next buzz came. 10:33 a.m., 1 minute before my name was called. It was another text from Dad. "Don't come crawling to me when it crashes. You're on your own." I stood up, fixed my collar, and walked onto the stage like nothing had happened. Shook hands with the dean, smiled for the camera, waved to the crowd. Inside, I felt nothing but static. Not pride, not joy, just grief. 3 years of silence, and that was all he had to say. Those 2 texts were the first I'd gotten from him since he stopped calling. After the ceremony, Mom hugged me like she hadn't seen me in 10 years. Brent clapped me on the back and told me, I cleaned up all right. David said something half-hearted about stock prices. Messages from Claudia, Hannah, Kevin, Glenn, Slack channels blowing up. CNBC had run the headline. 40 Quote goes public at 38 share, 1.02B valuation. Georgia Tech senior becomes youngest CEO to take a construction tech firm public. Emails were coming in from reporters, investor relations, board members, job applicants, old classmates. My inbox was cracking at the seams. And in the middle of all that noise, one message stood out. "Karen, it's official, 1.02B. We did it. You're on CNBC." I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking again, but not from nerves, heart pounding, face calm. When they called my name, I walked across the stage with my head up and my back straight. No swagger, no grin, just quiet fire. I shook the dean's hand, posed for the photo, and walked back to my seat while the announcer stumbled over the name of the next kid. The applause behind me faded fast. I barely heard it. My ears were ringing anyway. Grief isn't loud. It doesn't yell. It doesn't punch a wall. It just sits with you, heavy as concrete, while the whole world claps for something you can't even feel. I sat down, scrolled past the investor emails, ignored a call from Forbes, and stared out at the crowd. Somewhere out there, my dad was watching, probably still thinking about how a tech IPO didn't mean anything unless it came with grit and hard hats. Let him. After the ceremony, we regrouped near the lower bleachers. My mom pulled me into a hug so tight I thought she might crack a rib. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." Brent was the next to step in. He clapped my shoulder and said, "Not bad for the Mark Zuckerberg of drywall." It actually made me laugh. David gave me a half hug and muttered, "Proud of you, man," like it hurt to say it. Then Dad showed up. Same weathered jeans, same tucked-in shirt, same arms folded like a closed gate. He reached out for a handshake. I gave it to him, stiff, cold, formal. "Congrats on the degree," he said again. "Nothing else? Not congrats on the IPO. Not saw the news. Not, you proved me wrong. Just that." I didn't bother waiting for anything more. I pulled out my phone, held it up, and tapped the message open. "Interesting timing on this text, Dad," I said loud enough for everyone around us to hear. "You want me to read it?" He didn't answer, so I did. "Don't come crawling to me when it crashes. You're on your own." I said it clearly. No heat, no drama, just fact. His face changed, not fast, but slowly, like it took a second for the weight of it to settle. People were watching now. A few phones came out. One woman whispered to her husband, but he didn't back down. He looked at me, eyes locked on mine, and I swear, behind all that stubbornness, there was something cracked, something proud, and something scared. The steakhouse was old school, dark wood, white tablecloths, and a private room in the back I booked 2 weeks in advance. I told them noon sharp. Dad showed up at 12:23, didn't apologize, didn't even look at the server. Just dropped into the chair at the end of the table and said, "Place smells like hedge fund bullshit. Tech kids getting rich off paper while the rest of us pour real concrete." Brent stiffened. David set down his glass hard enough to make ice clink. "You didn't even ask what the company does," Brent said. "He built something real." "Yeah," David added, "and it's making actual money, not just buzzwords." I hadn't expected backup, definitely not from them. Dad snorted, didn't look up from the menu. "You boys are quick to jump on a bandwagon. Hope you checked the brakes." I stayed calm, no sarcasm, no bite. I said, "We've got over 200 active clients across 5 states, builders, subcontractors, and logistics firms. Revenue hit $36 million last quarter. Our SEC filings are public. Strategic partnerships with 3 regional suppliers. Post-IPO, we've got a $1.02 billion valuation." Then I laid a folder on the table. 1-page summary, customers, team, timeline, press coverage, no bragging, just the truth. He didn't open it. He just leaned back and said, "You waited until the last second to go public with it, to make me look stupid." That was it, no question, just an accusation. I held his gaze. "I didn't build this company to spite you," I said. "I built it because I believed in it." I paused just long enough. "I stopped needing your approval the day I left for school." The silence after that felt like someone dropped a brick on the table. No one moved. Brent looked down at his plate. David checked his watch. Mom reached for her water, but didn't drink. Dad didn't respond. He just stared at the wall like he was trying to find a hole to crawl through. The server came in to take orders. Nobody was hungry. I ordered a coffee. The rest of them waved her off. I checked the time, 12:51. "I've got a live interview at CNBC's Atlanta studio at 1:15, I said. "Mom, Brent, David, you're all welcome to swing by the office after if you want a tour." I didn't extend the invite to him. I stood up, pushed the chair in, and adjusted my jacket. He didn't stop me. Didn't flinch, but just as I turned to go, he finally spoke. Quiet, low, almost like he didn't mean to say it out loud. "Impressive, son. Didn't see that coming." I froze for a second, not out of shock, more like disbelief. Not that he said it, but that it took him this long. I didn't look back, just kept walking toward the exit, passing the framed black and white photos on the wall, men in suits shaking hands, red meat and cigars between them. When I stepped outside, the sunlight hit me hard. Phone buzzed again. CNBC driver was waiting out front. I slid into the car and didn't say a word until we hit the freeway. Not because I was speechless, because for once, I finally felt finished. The next 72 hours were a blur. CNBC, Bloomberg, Fortune, all of them wanted a quote. My inbox was a disaster. Stock hit $57 by day 2. Everyone kept asking how it felt. It didn't feel like anything, not yet. Not until I opened a message from David. "Been reading your investor deck. Didn't realize how deep this thing goes. Real proud of you, man." That one hit different. A week earlier, I was the punchline. Now, I was the playbook. Brent started texting too, asking about hiring a project management platform for his own firm. Said we should sync up. Dad flew home Sunday morning. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't call. Just vanished the same way he always did. Quiet, heavy, unfinished. But Tuesday morning, something new showed up. A letter, formal, sealed, came through Karen's office. It was from his lawyer. They were inviting me to join Walker Materials' board of directors as an innovation advisor. I actually laughed out loud. Karen heard me from the next room and leaned in. I handed her the letter. "Draft a response?" she asked, raising one eyebrow. "Yep." "Polite," I said, "but firm. Tell them I'm open to vendor partnerships, but I'm not sitting on their board." She nodded. No questions asked. That same afternoon, I emailed my personal broker and transferred $40 million worth of 40-quote stock into a new nonprofit foundation. I called it First Shot. Mission? Fund scholarships for rural boys who wanted into tech but had zero support at home. Kids like me. I didn't want them chasing love from fathers who'd never give it. I wanted them building without permission. The first scholarship went to a 16-year-old from Greenwood, Mississippi. Quiet kid, big brain. Built a mobile game in his cousin's garage. His stepdad called coding gay and useless. Said no real man spent that much time on a keyboard. Kid read our offer letter and cried in front of his guidance counselor. That one broke me. I sat in my office with the blinds drawn, holding the printed letter, thinking about the old Dell desktop in my childhood bedroom, the broken monitor, the hours I spent hiding it under the bed like a dirty secret. I didn't need an apology from my father anymore. I had something better, proof. Proof that what I built mattered, that it helped people, that it made the world just a little more fair for the ones born into silence and doubt. I didn't forgive him because he earned it. I let go because I didn't need him to change. He could keep being who he was. I was done trying to fix it. I had better work to do. They gave me 25 minutes and a mic that didn't work for the first two. The event was called Tech Talks Forward, some polished leadership series at Georgia Tech's Scheller College. I didn't wear a suit, just jeans and a clean button-down. My talk was titled, Building What They Said You Couldn't. I told the students exactly what it took. Not the press version, the truth. The sleepless nights, the missed meals, the silence from the people you love most. The choice between staying hungry and staying comfortable. Then I said the one thing I wish someone had told me earlier. Chasing approval is a treadmill, but earning respect, that's a road. Harder, longer, but it actually takes you somewhere. The crowd was locked in, quiet, a few heads nodding. During Q&A, a girl in the second row stood up, blonde ponytail, 40, quote sweatshirt, notebook full of scribbles. She asked, "Did your dad ever say he was proud of you?" I didn't hesitate. "No," I said, and I stopped needing it. Respect's earned, pride's optional. A few people clapped. I didn't pause for it. I wrapped up, thanked the moderator, and stepped off stage. Karen met me near the exit with a bottle of water and a nod. "You hit them right between the eyes," she said. As we walked outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no contact saved. The message just said, "Watched your talk. Sharp stuff." Dad. No emoji, no punctuation, no sign-off. I stared at it for a second, then slid the phone back into my pocket. Didn't reply, didn't need to. The sun hit hard that afternoon. Warm, clean, honest. I checked our team group chat. Revenue was up again. 2 new contracts signed while I was on stage. Glenn had already updated the dashboard. Then I opened the foundation portal. New batch of applicants had come in. One kid from Jasper, Alabama, 17. Built a job board app for local tradesmen after his shop teacher laughed at him for not wanting to swing hammers for a living. I smiled. That kid wasn't looking for permission either, just a shot. I didn't build this company to prove anyone wrong anymore. I built it to prove something right, and every single day, it kept proving itself.